What's up everyone, it's Victon here with an updated guide on the budget and in-game versions of my Animate Guardian setups for any summoner. With the recent bug fixes to Animate Guardian, his items no longer persist through death, and it's back to normal where if he dies, he drops all of his gear. So we don't want him dying, especially if you're using the in-game setup, which can cost upward of 2 to 3 exalts. Now I'm going to show you guys 3 different options here, each of which having their own pros and cons, but all will give you very strong bonuses to both your maximum DPS and survivability. It's extremely important to always have an Animate Guardian running, so don't overlook the potential here. It might be a bit annoying to have to set him up, but once you get it going, I promise you won't regret it. Also, new to this guide from my last one, I'm going to go ahead and post direct links in the video's description to the PoE trade website below for every item that I mention here, so you can easily search for everything without much effort. And before we get going here, if you end up enjoying this video or any of my many other Path of Exile guides, give this video a like and consider subscribing for more content just like this. Also check out the link to my Patreon in the video's description if you're interested in helping out the channel and getting some juicy benefits along the way. Alright, so without further ado, let's jump right into the base starter budget Animate Guardian. Not much has changed here except one item, but first and foremost it's important to note that this setup is mainly for when you start maps and all the way up until tier 14 maps, when mobs start to do a little bit more damage and there's a potential that your Animate Guardian might die. This setup only costs about 10 chaos, so it's very cheap, and you should always have at least this setup running, even when you're just starting out. Alright, so the first item we want is a rare body armor with life and maximum percent life and some chaos resistance. Ideally, you also want an open prefix so you can craft 10% of maximum life as extra maximum energy shield. Having all these mods is actually quite cheap and gives your Animate Guardian a ton of survivability. Next, for his helmet, you want to pick up a Leer cast. This is a super cheap option and gives a small damage bonus to your summons. After that, we're going to pick up a pair of defensive boots instead of the typical Victorious flights. I found it better than having a small movement speed buff to go ahead and pick up some rare boots with a bit of life, 1 high elemental resistance, chaos resistance, movement speed, and a bench crafted chaos resistance. Overall, it just helps him get to the point where he pretty much won't die in any of these white and yellow tier maps. From there, we get a Dying Breath weapon, which gives our minions some additional damage, and nearby enemies have increased curse effectiveness on them. So 2 decent small DPS boosts. Lastly, we have a new item on the list with Replica Volkers. These give a really good chaos resistance and a bit of life, so overall a great pickup for only a chaos or 2. And that rounds it up for the budget Animate Guardian, so let's go ahead and move on to the 2 in-game versions of an Animate Guardian setup. The first is, I guess, more of a middle ground setup where you're going to spend about 1.5 to 2 exalts and get some great overall damage and survivability boosts. He won't be as tanky as the third option, but if you're playing something like the life or low life version of Carrion Golems, then this is absolutely all you need. You already give your Animate Guardian so many defensive buffs, he will just never die. For this setup, we're going to use a vulnerability curse on hit pair of gloves, or any curse on hit that works for your build. For example, lots of people are running Syndicate Operative Spectres right now and converting all of their physical damage to cold. So you'd want to use Elemental Weakness instead of Vulnerability Curse here. And for the base of the gloves, we go with the Embalmer. They come with life and some chaos resistance, and are pretty cheap, coming at just about 10 chaos for either curse on hit. For our body armor, we're actually going to use the same body armor we had in our budget version here, because it gives great defensive stats, and with this version costing a little bit more, again, we want him to not die. So we need to get him tanky items as much as possible where we can. For our boots, we do need an additional curse, so our Animate Guardian can curse and we can curse as well, totaling a maximum of 2 curses. Luckily, we can just pick up a cheap pair of Windscreen boots for only a chaos. For our helmet though, we do want to switch it up here and use a rare helmet with nearby enemies take 9% increased physical damage. Just buy the cheapest pair you can and bench craft chaos resistance, or life depending on if it has an open prefix or suffix. Again, if you're using something like cold damage specters, then we want to go for one that has nearby enemies have -9 to cold resistance. This is going to give you some great DPS, so a big pickup here. Lastly is our weapon, and the most important item, a Kingmaker. This thing gives you and your minions permanent fortify, culling strike, and 50% crit multi, which are all huge buffs. At the time of making this video, it cost about 35 chaos, which is why we want to make sure that our Animate Guardian doesn't die, so we don't have to purchase this again. This is the setup that I personally run on my low-life Carrion Golem Necromancer, and my Animate Guardian has never died, and I've been playing tons of 100% Delirious Tier 16 maps, so the survivability is definitely there. If you have the currency or want something to work toward, this setup will give you a ton of damage and a ton of survivability. I wouldn't be playing Summoner without this, it's just that strong. That being said, there is one more setup worth note that basically makes your Animate Guardian literally unkillable. You lose 9% more damage from the helmet, but like I said, he is literally unkillable. So you get the peace of mind knowing that you won't ever have to rebuy any of these items in the very off chance that he does die. Basically, you do the same gloves, boots, and weapons as the previous version, but instead of the rare helmet where enemies reduced physical or elemental resistance, we opt for a unique Mask of the Stitched Demon. These come in at about 120 chaos, so more than the middle ground helmet. But the way this helmet works is we're going to get a body armor to combo with it. For the body armor, like I said, we want the same body armor we've used in the last versions. But the most important mod here is the bench crafted 10% of maximum life added as maximum energy shield. Long story short is it basically gives your Animate Guardian an insane amount of life regen per second. So anytime he takes damage, he regens it instantly back up to full life. Doing this last version cost a bit more and loses just a little bit of damage, but like I said, he literally never dies, so you don't risk losing any of the items that you put on him. Now, whichever version you pick, whether it be the budget version or the higher DPS version or the slightly less DPS but more survivability version, I promise you that the time spent to buy these items and deck out your Animate Guardian will be worth it. I feel like a lot of people skip over the Animate Guardian or just forget about setting him up, so just a friendly reminder to make sure that you always take the time to set this guy up. He gives great bonuses to you and your minions and is well worth the investment. And with the recent patch that fixed Animate Guardian reverting it back to the way it should have been, where he drops all items on death, I just wanted to get this update out so everybody had an idea of what the best way to set up an Animate Guardian is now. And that's all I got for this one, guys. If y'all enjoyed this update or any of my other Path of Exile guides, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. And a big shout out to my Patreons. Y'all's support means a lot and helps me be able to continue to put out these guides, so thank you very much for your continued support. Lastly, I'm going to leave you guys with a run I did on my Carrion Golem build in a Juice Tier 16 Jungle Valley using the second Animate Guardian setup I mentioned in this video. It's a huge boost in damage and survivability, which helps you push into those really big endgame maps. So a nice little showcase here of what your Animate Guardian can do. Thanks everyone, and I'll see y'all in the next one.